Hello, today um, so we have already discussed uh, about interfaces, and we already worked with implementation classes. So we already have worked on this by using Spring. So let me show it again. So today we're going to try few more ways of using interface and implementation. Okay. So in the previous topic, we have created student interface. The student interface has one public method defined. So any method, so any class which implements the student class must and should override all the methods present in that interface. So I have taken one implementation. So in this implementation, what I have done is I have added the configuration. We already know that we can't add at the rate configuration at before the interface. So we can't add configuration, annotation before the interface. So I'm going to remove it. Showing some error. Configuration cannot resolve to type. Okay, we cannot use it before the interfaces. So I have created two implementation classes. One is student implementation one, other one is student implementation two. So student implementation one is implementing student, and it is overriding the methods education. So I have written some print statement saying that education is BTech. For the student implementation class one, it's implementing BTech. So whereas student implementation two class is also implementing student class, and it has overridden uh, its method, that is education, and it's also printing something. So here I'm printing education is MCA. The student one, it's printing education is BTech, and student two, it's printing education is MCA. So I have already uh, as to define it as an Spring. So I have added configuration at the top of it, top of the all the implementation classes. So I have added for the student implementation one and student implementation two. Okay. Now, uh, in the main class, I have created the container. So, and I created container, and I have mentioned the base package inside the MOC util. Okay. And I have, so if we have only one implementation, container is quite intelligent. With it intelligence, it automatically create the object for the implementation class, for its implementation class. But here we have two classes which are implementing the student interface. So we have to, use its, we have to create the object called the getBean by using its implementation class, not the interface. Okay, if it is one, we can directly call with the interface name. So container is quite intelligent to identify its student interface implementation classes, and then it's going to create the object. So using that object, we can call the methods. So as we are using, as it has two implementation, so we need to call the container, call the getBean method by using its implementation class. So This is what we have discussed in our previous uh, in the previous session. So now we are going to do few more modifications, few more. Okay. So let's first of all let me create. I'm going to remove all this. Say OK. So now you can see my package has nothing. So right click on it and create new interface. I can say interface. So my name of interface is, okay, I'm going to say fish. So as this interface, I can't add at the rate configuration before it, saying that it is related to the string beans. Okay. So now I'm going to create the implementation class for it. So right click on it, say new class. I'm going to say address implementation one. Okay, say finish. So as is implementation class, I'm going to add at the rate configuration. So it's going to add this annotation. So inside it, so I'm going to implement the student class, address class, implements student, implement address. Okay. So when I say implement, so it should implement all the classes, but whereas my address method does not have any methods are not defined any methods. So let me define this method, public void education. So let me define this method. So now my implementation class must and should be overriding all those methods. So I added all the override methods. Now I'm going to say this out, control space. Now I'm going to say hi, this is from address implementation one class. Okay, I'm going to save it. So so this is my implementation class and this is my interface. So I have implemented this address class by using address implementation by implements that particular interface. So I have overridden uh, the only one method which is present in it. Okay. So with this, so we have implemented class. So let me create a one more class. Let's say it's a Java Bean, Spring Bean. So I'm going to name it as I'm going to say employee. So employee finish control S. Okay. Now immediately after creating a class, it's a good practice to add configuration at the top of it, and so let me have few instance variables. So let me create few instance variables. Um, PID. I'm going to say EMP ID. Okay. Now create one more variable. It's EMP name. Okay, and so let me add um, address implementation one, and I'm going to say address. Okay, so you can see it's the address implementation class. It's the implementation class. So I have this is the data type. So I'm making use of this address implementation here inside my class, inside my employee. Um, so address implementation one is imprinting something. Let me say my address modified. Address is Hyderabad. Okay. So it's going to print this. So now I'm making use of address implementation class here inside my employee class. So must and should be there should be some dependency. To create the dependency, I'm going to use AutoWire. So control space is going to know it has created a dependency injection. So automatic implementation will be injected into this employee class. So let's create setters and getters. Generate getters and setters. I'm going to select all. Say OK. Then I will also add toString to print something. To print all these values. Format it. Okay. Now save it. Okay. I have three instance variables. One is EMP ID, which is of data type is integer. Other one is EMP name, which data type is string. And I am making use of address implementation class. So as it is in a class, I need to create a dependency in the employee class. So I have used AutoWire to create the dependency. Now I can make use of the address implementation class here. Okay. I can directly call the methods related to this class. So, so let me use uh, display method instead of toString. Say sys out of I'm going to print EID, and the second one I'm going to print name EMP ID and EMP name. I'm going to print this EMP ID EMP name, and in the third one I'm going to print the address, get address, get address of of education. So education. So let me change it to the change the name as this thing, my address. um, to be much more meaningful. So now I need to modify all these things. Okay, I need to call my control space, you can say my address, get address of my address. So I've got some problem showing red. Why? Why? Because my address, if you go to my address method, my address method is void. So my address is a void, it's not reading anything, it's just printing. So we should not write inside the sysout. So let me remove this and save it. So now in the display method, I'm going to print all this thing. So here, if you look at this thing, I have the three instance variables. One is EMBID, name, and address. So address implementation one, it's address data type is address implementation one. So to create the dependency, I have used AutoWire. So with this, I can make use of the implementation. Okay. So now, let me provide some values to this. So I'm going to use @rate value of 10. The employee ID is 10. Why we got some error? Okay. So now here I'm going to add um, name. What's for name? Something. Let me add this. Okay. You can also give value is equal to. Even this is also fine. Okay. So for this AutoWire, let me add. So this is just an. It's not. I'm going to not add anything because this thing is this class. This implementations class is and a method I need to call this. So in the display method, I'm already calling. Okay. So now I'm going to give any values to this. I'm going to save it. Now I will go to let me create main class, a new class app. This is my main class. So I will select public static void main, and here I'm going to create new container by using control space, copy the application context, enter. I'm going to name it as store it in container table. So whenever you create the container, it's always good practice to close. So as I closed it, so we always need to mention base package. Base package instead I'm going to make use of the class mocutil dot class. Here I'm going to have component scan. Here I'm going to have the component scan. So that's what I have mentioned it here. So now let me create the beam. Get beam. I'm going to say container dot get beam. Um, as we have just only one beam, I'm going to call directly with the with the name of the beam. Assign it an employee and Let me call display, save it, and let me run and check it whether it's displaying display method or not. You can see it is displayed as if ID value, employee ID, employee name, and the address. It has say my address is so in the first employee class. So you can see I have created the dependency. So at this display method, I'm calling the get address of my address. So my address has displaying this out. So this is out. Okay. So this is working fine. When you use directly the implementation class, okay, implementation class, it's working fine. So address implementation one is implementing the address interface. Okay. So let me do some modification to the employee class. I will go to instead of making use of address implementation class, I'm going to directly mention address. So what is address? Address is interface. So directly I mention address. So you can see here, address implementation class is implementing address, and address is interface. Okay. So I'm going to um, auto-wire address implementation. Let me check this now. So I use the address. It's asking us to modify. Okay, both look same. Okay, we need to change the name. So now all the errors are removed. So I have corrected the get us status based upon the data type. So now let me run this. Let me go to app.java, run as Java application. You can see when we used interface private. Let me correct the charge. Okay, so so I have created this variable for the interface, not for the address implementation class. So even here, the container is so intelligent that it's going to go to address interface and identify its implementation class. So its implementation class is what? This. So it's going to come here and call the this method. So this method gets called and this message gets printed. Okay. So when we have the one implementation method, we can directly make use of the interface here. We can directly define the interface here. Okay. So what if the address interface is implementing one or more? So sorry, it's implementing more than one. So let's say that let me create a one more address one. Let me create a class which also implements the address class. I'm going to copy this, paste it. I'm going to say to okay. I'll say okay. So now again address two. So this is the address one and this is the address two. So address two is also overriding my address and it's printing some other message. Let's say that okay, let's say that it's printing its address saying its address is Vijayawada. And whereas the address one is also implementing address class and printing some method. So the address interface has a two implementation. One is address implementation one, Other one is other address implementation 2. Okay, so we have two implementations. So if you go to employee.class and make use of the address interface, so it should definitely throw some error. Let's check it. Okay, so asking us to go to app.java and run. Okay, I'm going to run as Java application. You can see here, we should get some exception. You can see we already got it. It's saying that unsatisfied dependency exception. Dependency exception. Unsatisfied dependency. What is the dependency? When we can create the dependency, here we are creating the dependency by using auto while. So the dependency what you created, there is a problem. That's what it's showing. It's saying that unsatisfied dependency exception. Okay, let me go right. It's read the full message. Error creating the bean with the name employee. Okay, it has found the problem while creating the bean with the name employee. So at the starting itself, it's found the problem. What it's saying is unsatisfied dependency expressed through the field address. Okay, through the field address. Next exception is no unique bean definition exception. No qualifying bean of the type com.asif available. No qualifying bean. So it has found nothing. Expecting single matching bean but found two. It is expecting single matching bean. Single matching bean but found two. What are they? One is address implementation one, other one is address implementation two. So it has found the two implementation classes as we are making use of interface. We are using interface. So what we have to do, so what is the solution for it? The solution, we have the solution. So we can resolve such kind of issues by using one annotation, that is at the rate qualifier. Okay, using this qualifier we can resolve the problem. Okay, so let's see how to use this qualifier, use this annotation and resolve this problem. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the qualifier at two sides. Let's say that this is my implementation class. Okay, so at this implementation class what I'm going to do is I need to select only one implementation class, because here we can't call both these implementation method. We can call only one implementation method. So what I'm going to do is, okay, so what I'm going to do is um, I'll go to one implementation class and add at the rate qualifier. I'm going to add at the rate qualifier. Control space save. Okay, so and in the qualifier I should use some name. Okay, some name, let me say that value is equal to some name. Let me say that name one. Let me say some name. Okay, so given some name, or else you can give directly add. Let me give this addr. Okay, so we need to use a similar qualifier at the employee also. Even here, under the auto wire, you need to use at the rate value is equal to address. Okay, So ADDR. So now what it's going to do is, even though you make use of the interface, so even though you make use of the interface, okay, it's going to check for the qualifier. So here the qualifier name is address. It's going to go to verify the other classes which has the similar the qualifier with the value ADDR. So it's going to go to the address for implementation class. It's going to find here. So that's how it's going to the construct. So now it's going to construct this one. So employee class. So it's going to search for the address class, and it's going to find the implementation class which has the qualifier, a qualifier with the name value is equal to ADDR. So it's going to go to this address class, and it's going to find the implementation class which has the qualifier as ADDR. So first of all, it's going to search here. So as it found here, so it's going to consider this. Okay, so it's going to consider this and create the dependency injection for this class. So let's say that we want to create the dependency for this class, not for this. Then what we need to do is we need to simply remove it from here, and add the qualifier here. So now employee class using the auto wire using this qualifier, it's going to first of all it's going to go to the address class. So in the address class, it's going to find out the implementation class which has the qualifier is equal to ADDR first. So it doesn't have this, right? So it has this. So it's going to directly come here and create the dependency injection. Okay. So now it's going to print my address is this. So let's check it. Let me go to app.java and run it. So you can see it's created my address is Vijayawada. So let's say that I don't want to make use of address implementation 2. I want to make use of address implementation 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the qualifier to the address 1 and with the name ADDR. Okay, this is the value for the name for the qualifier. So when so um, the what we create the dependency injection. First of all, it's going to go to the address interface. So address interface, it's going to find the qualifier implementation class which has the qualifier with the name ADTR. The matching, it should be matching both in the employee and in the implementation class. It should be matching. So it's going to consider this as so it's going to create a dependency for this class, for this bean. Okay. So now it has a method. My address is Hyderabad. Now it should print Hyderabad. Okay, my address is Hyderabad because as it's calling address implementation 1. Let me go to main class and run it as Java application. You can see now it's printed. My address is Hyderabad from the address implementation class because it has the qualifier value is equal to ADTR. Okay. So this is all about the interfaces and annotations, and the way to create the dependency injection for the particular implementation class using the annotation at the rate qualifier with some name. So name is a mandatory. Let's check it. Let me remove the name. Save, save it, and even here I'm going to remove the name. And let me run it as a Java application. Oh, the qualifier. Let's say that let me add even here. Okay, go to main class and run. Now we should get exception. Same exception saying that required expecting single matching being but found two. What are found? Address implementation found and address implementation two. Okay. So for which the implementation we want to create the dependency ensure. So for that implementation class, we should add the qualifier name. Okay. Let me remove this. Now this should work fine. Okay. You created added the dependent injection for the address implementation one. So it should print my address as Hyderabad. Okay. So this is about the interfaces and implementation classes by using annotations. So for the multiple for the creating the dependency injection for the particular implementation class, we need to make sure about the annotation qualifier. Okay. So that's about the qualifier. Okay. That's all for now. Oh, I forgot to talk about one more thing. I forgot to talk about the scope. Let me add a scope here. Scope I can add at the class level, right? So let me add the scope, control space, and inside it, I'm going to use scope name is equal to so when you say scope name, just place your cursor there. Okay, say scope name is equal to now place your cursor. So now place your cursor. Just simply let me expand. So it's saying that specifies the when you say we can also say a value. It's the alias name for it, but it's a good practice to use scope name. So defaults to string which implies single scope underscore singleton. So when you say blank, it implies to the scope singleton. So it's always a good practice to add the fully qualified name, fully qualified, full constant. Okay. So let's say that by default it's singleton, right? So let me use prototype. So now the scope of this bean, employee bean, is prototype. So the prototype is going to create the object at when we call the get bean method. Okay, not at the container creation time. It's going to create the object at the time of get bean method. Okay, so I will go to my main class and let me repeat this. I'm going to repeat this. Okay, in my address and getters and setters, I'm not going to print emp and employee name. Okay, simply I'm going to okay, okay, let me add this. There will be no problem. So let me so I have calling the display method for 3 times. So the output should get repeated for the 3 times because the scope for the employee class is prototype. It's going to create the object at the time of get bean method, right? 3 get beans. What's the problem? No scope register for the scope name, configuration being prototype. Okay, so let me repeat this three times. If you call get bean for three times, it's going to the scope is prototype. It's going to create the object for the three object three times. Okay, what's the problem? No scope registered for the configurable factory scope prototype.